Hello guys, this is Professor Mike, your favorite online web instructor. This tutorial involves setting up a connection with a server in Dreamweaver and also exporting and importing site settings. Because once you establish the connection and put in usernames and passwords for multiple sites and stuff like that, sometimes you want to move the site definition of inside of Dreamweaver from one computer to another. And we're going to discuss that in here after we discuss connecting to the server. Okay. Now, if you're in my course at the college, I need you to know that this video will show you how to connect to the server, but inside of this video, I will not reveal to you the password. That's revealed in the private video, or you can get that online. Okay, so you might want to watch the private video, which goes through this stuff in a little more detail. Now, regardless of which one you're watching, if you're in the mass public, obviously you're watching this one, I'll show you how to connect to a server. I'm not going to have the same login credentials as you are, the username, password, FTP address, but whoever you sign up with, you're going to get these three things no matter what. Those are the three things you're always going to get. So that's what we're going to focus on here at the beginning. Okay, now in the process of this tutorial, and this will be a little bit shorter than most of the ones I do, we're going to talk about standard credentials for server connection. So that's FTP address, username, password. We're going to troubleshoot some common issues that might be preventing you from connecting to the server when you go to test it, and we're going to talk about moving Dreamweaver sites. So once you set up multiple sites with these connections, and each of them has different connections, you might not want to redo all that if you reinstall a new version of Dreamweaver. Install a new version of Dreamweaver or switch computers or something. So I'll show you how to move sites from one version of Dreamweaver to another, or from one computer to another. Okay, so I've jumped over to the web here, and I've pulled up a reference page that I tend to go to just when I'm shopping hosting companies, shopping companies that provide these types of services, domain sales and server hosting space, so you can associate that domain with an actual space online where the site is located, so that when people type in the domain, it pulls up the home page from that folder. And that's all the server is really doing, is storing your website as it's stored locally in Dreamweaver online in their storage space. Okay, and then the technology they have behind their server associates that domain name via the name server with your server space, and then it connects and the page comes up. So you can get this type of service from a lot of companies, and if you're using Joomla or WordPress or one of the online tools, they kind of set it up internally themselves. It all works the same way, and whatever company you're going to get this stuff from, if you're connecting your local site on your machine to an external server via Dreamweaver, whoever you're working with, and I work with GoDaddy, and it's just, I mean, I don't work for them, I'm not trying to promote them in any way, I just find them to be one of the easiest platforms to use. It's simple. When I go to log into my account, it shows all my domain names, it shows a variety of things associated with the services that I pay for as part of my GoDaddy account. One of the first notes you should be aware of is sometimes when you set up a login and a username for your account that logs you into domains, any kind of special email accounts you have, a hosting platform, the login and the username might not be the same to connect for your server. So when you set this up with whatever company you do it with, you just need to make sure that you get the three main credentials from them. And that's all you really need to log in and connect to your server space through Dreamweaver. So let's jump over there and talk about these credentials. Okay, so I'm in Dreamweaver, I'm in CS6 here. It would look a little bit different in CS5 or previous versions, but you could still go through this video and connect using the same instructions that I'm giving you here. So you don't need to open up any of your pages. If you've been working through my tutorials, you would probably have a similar demo site that I do here, and you may have created a lot of stuff in here, but now it's time. You know, you've done a lot of menu work, you've added some content, you want to get this thing online and see what it looks like, and you've gone and paid for some server space. So you don't have to open up any files. You would go right to Manage Sites, and you can go there from here, you can go there from the Site menu, get into Manage Sites, and simply double click on the site that you have set up, and we're going to connect to the server. So when I set you up in my tutorials previous to this one, all we did was we gave the site a name and connected it to a folder where all of the sites and the asset files were located. Okay, so this is a local folder on our machine. We didn't get into anything else. So today in this tutorial, we're going to go one step further and connect to a server so we can actually see this on the web, and that'll all happen within this video. So first step, hit the plus sign. I think in previous versions of Dreamweaver it actually had it spelled out like add new server. So we're going to hit the plus sign and we're going to call this remote server. Now I wouldn't go out of your way to make a testing server as well, because then every time you open the site it tries to connect, and it's annoying if you're not actually connected to the internet whenever you open Dreamweaver. So I would just set up the remote server. It's not really important what you call this. I just think the remote server explains it quite well what it is. This is a connection to the place on the web, not on your computer, where you're going to upload your files to, and then they'll be visible to the mass public on the web. So you should get from the company where you're paying for these services an FTP address, a username, and a password. Those are the three main credentials that you need to have to make this connection, and that's it. It really is that simple. So for the example I'm using, my FTP address, I don't have a number. I have an account with multiple domains, and I've set up this one domain to be my main domain for the account. So my FTP address is a domain. Sometimes, and especially if you're working with a friend that's put together his own server, it's not a mass market company, you might have one of those long numbers with a lot of decimals in here as your FTP address. But typically if you use an online service, and there's lots of them out there today, and as you saw here in this little resource, you know, the stuff is not that expensive, right? It's quite cheap actually when you look at the cost. I mean, a domain name can be anywhere from $2 to $15 for something that isn't considered a premium domain with good keywords in it, and you could still use keywords from your site in the domain. It just might not be that something that somebody else wants. And then for anywhere from $3 to $8 a month, you can have unlimited server space. You can also get free server space usually when you buy domains, but that comes with advertising across the top of your site, so that's not fun. So I do teach in my course like the kind of costs associated with this and website budgeting. You guys can just shop around if you're ready to actually launch a site. Now that you've gone through some of these tutorials with me, you've used a template, maybe you've built one on your own. I also teach that in my class. Most of these tutorials have been based on a template, but it's time to connect. Okay, so that's my main FTP address set up in that account. My username is this, okay, and my password, which I can't reveal to you in this video because that would cause me a lot of problems. I'm just going to type in, you're not going to know what it is, but I'm going to type it in, okay, and then assuming I've put all these things in correctly, and these are, all three of these fields are cap sensitive, and this one has a lot of weird characters in it. I have like an exclamation mark in there and a bunch of capitals and lowercase letters. I hit test, and I've done this successfully, okay? If you know that you have your three main login credentials correct, and you've typed them in a couple times, and you keep hitting test and you're not connecting successfully, here's a couple reasons it might be. You've gone over here and you've changed the port. Unless you're doing something with different types of technology, if you're just uploading a standard site, it should always be port 21. I'm not really sure why. You know, I'm not an expert coder guy. I've just learned how to make websites quite easily, but it's always port 21. Okay. Additionally, if you have a previous version of Dreamweaver, if you click on the drop down to get to the additional options, you're going to want use passive FTP checked. Okay. This isn't a dedicated line. You're only going to really connect when you go to upload something, and this is, I think, I'm not sure I have that right entirely, but I do know for sure that you need this checked on most machines, Macs and PCs, for this to work. Okay, and this might look slightly different on a Mac, but for the most part, all this stuff is accurate. So if you test and now it's working, it's probably because you had that wrong or you didn't have this check. So you need to have that check. You need to have that at 21. If you're still hitting test and it's still not working, it could be for one of two other reasons. You're either not connected to the internet, because you need an internet connection to be connected to the server. And that's one of the cool things about Dreamweaver. You can work on your site offline anytime you want. You can be on a plane and not have to pay for the, you know, the weak, very weak, I think, connection you get in the air just to work on your site, which you'd have to be connected to work on it in WordPress or something, right? In Dreamweaver, you can work on it any time, and then the next time you're connected, assuming you've put this stuff in correctly, you just upload your files, okay? So that's one reason why you might not be connecting, because your computer isn't actually connected. If you're connecting via wireless signal, make sure you have the password and you're actually connected. Go try and get to a web page on the web and make sure you're connected, right? That's the obvious reason. Okay, the not so obvious reason, if you've checked all this stuff off and you know you're connected to the internet and you know you can get on the web and it's still not working, is that you don't have one of these three things correct, in which case you'd have to call back the company that's providing you with these services or whoever's helping you out with server space and make sure you have that right. Now I do, so when I keep hitting test, it keeps working. Now for the root directory, you may or may not need to put anything in here. If you're sharing server space with other people, more than likely you're not going to upload your site to the main open folder of space here at kinlandschool.com, which is exactly how my students are trained to do it in my course. They're not going to be uploading right to here. They're going to be uploading into a folder called F 2012. That's for the fall semester of 2012. If you're watching this, you know, in a later year, I'm sure that the instructions here are still relevant, but that's the folder where I'm having my students connect to. And on top of that, they're also connecting to a folder that I've already created for them for their stuff to go into online, associated with their last name. So unlike when you create a Dreamweaver site and you either connect to a folder on your machine where your files are already located, or it makes the folder for you and then you put your files in there, this process, when you're connecting to the external server, the remote server at in some other place, is going to connect to a folder that already exists there. You can make all sorts of folders inside of there. I'm going to upload these folders, but it's going to connect to a folder that's already there. So I already put these in there for my students, and this is my last name, so I'm going to demonstrate how this works. If the folder's there and I've spelled my name correctly, it would continue to tell me that I've successfully connected. So that's it for the connection. You need these three things if you have your own server space and you're not planning on doing more than one site, and it's just going to go into the main folder. So all of these files on your index page would just go into the main folder at kinlandschool.com. Okay? If in fact you're going to have multiple sites, then I would make a subfolder for it, and in the account that provides you with these services on the web, you'd go and connect each domain to a specific folder that you create in there. And I can go through this process with GoDaddy here. You know what, let me pause for a second. Okay, so I've just logged into another one of my GoDaddy accounts. These are a bunch of my URLs, and you can see I do have a main one set up here. So if I were to sorry about that interruption there. So if I were to drop like an index file just right into the main folder, that would load up if I typed in grandbendontario.ca into the address bar in a web browser. Okay, now there's also ways to kind of alter that based on the how you set up the canonical and the htaccess file, but that's going to be in later videos. That's not yet. Okay, we'll deal with that later. For right now, I have multiple URL domains within this account, and I have one main domain. So instead of having to type in that big long FTP address, this is my FTP address. If I go to log into this account, then I have a username and a password. And then in Dreamweaver, down here, if I was doing, for example, if I was connecting the server for HuronLakefront.com, it would connect to this root directory. It wouldn't go into the main one. So you need to understand, if you leave this blank right here, it's automatically good to go into the main root directory for this. So if you're sharing server space with somebody, you got to know where your folder is going to be. And it's not going to automatically set a folder up. Somebody will have had to set up a folder for you, and that's what I do for all my students. So once you get all this correct and you test and it works, okay, you're good to go. You hit save, it always gives you this message: the cache will now be recreated because of the name root folder. So we've kind of set some new stuff up in terms of the remote directory. So I've done this previously. Even if you hadn't created anything yet, it'd probably still give you this message. So you click OK, and it's set. Now, just before I close out of here, I want to jump back in. Some of you might have noticed that it automatically populated this address, and I'm going to show you how that works in a second as well, because this is the same as a domain that's associated with that folder, and I'll get back to that in 1 second. Okay, for right now, let's take a look at how this works. So unlike before, previous to connecting to a server, when I went to remote server, I couldn't connect anything. There was nothing there. Now I'm connecting to the remote server for my demo site. It's currently empty. Okay, so I'm going to go back to local view and show you how simple it actually is to upload files to your server. I'm just going to start by uploading the index file. So prior to doing that, we are going to run over here and we're going to go to that actual address. Now I don't have a specific domain set up for this, so I will just go directly to there. So right now, at that address, nothing is there. It says forbidden, nothing's there, okay? And I don't have anything in the htaccess file that would bring up a better message than that, but that's, again, something for another video. I want the index file to be there, so I click it and I go upload. This is a helpful message that you can choose not to show every time you upload or download files. Dependent files means if there are any images in there, I'm going to click no, and there's a reason for that. I'll show you in a second. If there are any images in there, it's connected to CSS. Anything where there's hyperlinks or any kind of file connected to it or associated with it will also upload with it. I just wanted to go really fast. Now I go here and refresh. You can see, hey, there's something there now. That's how fast it is. It's there, but the image isn't there yet. None of the formatting is correct because I haven't actually uploaded the CSS with it. Remember, as you learned when you're creating this with me, this site works based on the CSS telling the page how it wants to be laid out, all that type of stuff. This image is only going to appear on the web. It appears here now because the image is located here. The index is here. You need all of these same files in the remote server for it to work the same way. Okay, so I'm just going to go click. So the very first time I connect, I always click on the very top, okay, because that's the main site folder, and I just go and put to the remote server, so upload. So this is the put button, and I click put. It asks me if I want to put the entire site because I'm sitting on the top. Yeah, sure, I'll put the entire site. So this time it didn't ask me if I wanted to do any dependent files because you're putting the whole site anyway. So I'm going to pause while it's going through this, and then I'll bring it back up in a second. Okay, so that took about 2 minutes or so. I had paused, but it's just because I have the entire site also saved with a raw copy and stuff like that. So if I jump back over here and hit refresh, everything's there. Okay, it's that simple. Okay, so let's say I wanted to change this heading, welcome to Mike's fishing site. Let's say instead of saying welcome to Mike's fishing site, I wanted to say welcome to Mike's awesome fishing site. Okay, make that change, save the file. I don't even have to close it, just click on the one. Now I didn't change the CSS, I didn't change anything else, so all I have to upload is that single file. It's the only thing I changed, which means I don't need dependent files. Okay, so I jump back over to the web, I hit refresh, the change is there. That's it. And I'm doing this in real time so you guys can see how fast this actually is. It's that simple. Okay, now this is not, again, I think I said this at the beginning, this is not my ideal layout for a site in general. If I was going to make my own site for somebody, it probably wouldn't look exactly like this. I just grabbed the template and went with it. But you can see, regardless of the quality of the site, it's that easy to make the connection. Okay, once the site is connected, anything you change, anything you update, remember, if you add a new image, and let's say you added a new image and it appears in the about page, okay, and this, or on the contact page or something. So you've uploaded the contact page and you're like, where the heck is the image? You also have to upload the image. So remember that. And this is all done via this button. Now if you blow your CSS up or make some big mistakes to it, cause some problems, you can always go to the remote server, for example, go to your CSS file and get the CSS back simply by using this button, and it'll ask you the same thing. I don't really need dependent files, that's all I need. So that's a really small script file, so that's already in that. Okay, so you can go both ways here, which is kind of cool. But remember that this will only work if you're connected to the internet. Okay, you can't use this. You can actually, I think, hang on one. Okay, not exactly. Someone had told me that you could just you could, like, I've opened up the index from the remote server. Okay, yeah, whatever. No. So this is opened it up from the remote server. Welcome to awesome Mike's fishing site. That's kind of a, it's supposed to be Mike's awesome fishing site, by the way. Let's call it Mike's sweet fishing site. Okay, there. So I'm editing this even though I opened it from the remote server. Once I save it, it doesn't automatically upload. Okay, I still have to go back and put it. So I'd put this even though I'm in the remote server. So bottom line, even if you open it from the remote server, you have to put it every time because it's not going to automatically just start transferring files. Okay, so a couple other quick things you need to know. 20 minutes, that's kind of long. when you're transferring these back and forth, whether you're on the remote or the local view, you're going to start to see once you do this. For example, I put a CSS file into this folder. So if I were to go into the folder in Dreamweaver, I'm likely to see there. Okay, see, it adds these little notes folders. This is an automatic thing when you make the FTP connection in Dreamweaver. You can just ignore them. They're not going to cause you any problems. Okay, you can see they're in there. They're not bothering anybody. It's just a sync thing that they put in there, and you can do other things with your settings to set it up to automatically upload every time you open it. And I believe there's still a way to do that in CS6, but I think it's easiest just to you make the connection, you upload the whole site, and then you only have to upload the things you change after that. Every once in a while, I think it's a really good practice. And in Windows, you can do this, not in Dreamweaver, because you don't have to update links. You can go into Windows, and you can highlight, for example, everything in the site, okay, like this. And you can send to, and if you're on a Mac, you want to use whatever compression software you have there. You'll send to a compressed zip, and you can call this like site snapshot November, whatever the heck it is, I don't know, and put that in your raw folder. So because you zipped it all up together, everything in there, the links, all that stuff will work. That shouldn't still be in there. Okay, so you could upload then just that to your remote server, so you have copies of your site from various dates. Both. Now this could start to become a pretty big zip folder if you have a lot of media and stuff, so it's something to consider. But the one cool thing about connecting the server, once you have that all set up, is you have an automatic backup now. And technically, the server really is, it's the cloud. I mean, that's all the cloud really is storing your files remotely. So applications like desktop applications like filezilla, they're doing the same exact thing. You type in, okay, so let's say we want to make a, well, yeah, I might get that. Hang on a second. We want to make a connection. Okay, so just connecting here, and that'd be port 21. This is going to connect to the server the same way Dreamweaver did. Okay, and if I go into the fall 2012 folder, you'll see all my students' folders there. Okay, if I go down to Sloan, so it's the same technology. Dreamweaver is just connecting directly to the subfolder, but you can use programs like FileZilla and actually use your server space, not just for your web page, but you can use it to send your friends entire albums or collections of photos that are just too big to email, right? And you can zip them, and you can upload them to the main folder at kinlanschool.com, and then the link, for example, would just be kinlanschool.com/ the zip file. Here, you know what, I'll actually show you here as an example for a second. Okay, so let's say as an example I wanted to send somebody FileZilla, right? So I'm going to compress it first, because you can't upload individual files and then have people download them quite as easily. It's always best to zip it up. So if I zip this up, okay, that's, and mine usually looks like a folder with a zipper on it. I use WinRAR, so I have a little pile of books there. This can be moved around as a single file. Okay, so in FileZilla, if I go to my desktop here, okay, so let's navigate to the desktop. Let's look around on the desktop here. Okay, what am I doing? I'm already on the desktop. So I just had to right click and click refresh to see it. So if I want that to go over to the main folder there, I want to get back out to the root directory, so I go all the way back up to here. So this is kinlanschool.com in the root directory, and I double click this. Okay, so it's going to upload. I'll pause for a second and let it upload. Okay, so that transfer is complete. So you can see that it's over on the other side now, which means, and that's kind of a bad file name to send your friends if you want them to download something from your server, but I have that ready to go and typed out. So I'm just going to put that in the address bar here, and if I hit enter, it automatically goes to download that file. And that's the way most browsers will work. So don't consider, when you make this connection, don't consider your server space only a place for web pages. You can also use it to store files, backup files, send things to your friends, share files. I mean, it's not as conducive as the cloud technology where you can check files in and out so you're not both changing them at the same time. But it's definitely, that's the cloud. I mean, Since 1993, people have been in the cloud. People talk about the cloud like it's this big deal. The web is the cloud. I mean, that's truly what we're doing here. So you didn't just learn how to connect to the server today, you also got in the cloud. Now, I'm going to jump into something, as I indicated here at the beginning. We're also going, I troubleshot the stuff. I showed you where things might not be working if you couldn't connect. We talked about the standard credentials. I spent a lot of time going through what's happening, why it's working. I even got into some FTP technology, which I should have had at the beginning, actually. Because FTP means File Transfer Protocol, and that's all Dreamweaver's really doing. It's connecting with your 3 credentials so that you can transfer files back and forth, and that's all FileZilla is really doing. The same thing as Dreamweaver. Okay, so I made that file on my desktop, I transferred it over to here. And it's quick. I mean, this is pretty quick stuff. Now, I'm probably not going to use that there, so I'm just going to click on it and click delete. It's just like navigating in your computer. It's pretty simple stuff. So we covered a lot of cool things there. One of the things I wanted to show you quickly had to do with this. grandbendontario.ca is my main URL. And the surf is one of the sites that I have there. So if I go to grandbendontario.ca/endless-surf without typing in any file or extension and hit enter, if there is an index file or my canonical is set up to bring up a specific home page, it comes up automatically in that folder. Okay? And if I set up my canonical properly, this should go to endlesssurf.ca, but again, that's for another video. If I go to endlesssurf.ca, okay, which in my hosting account is one of my URLs, and it directs to that folder, it goes to the same exact page as grandbendontario.ca/endless-surf. It's the same site. That's the index file, so that's what comes up there. That's what I was talking about when I said I'll get to that later. When we jump back into our managed sites, demo site, if we go to servers, in here you'll see this big long address that populated. Because I don't have a specific domain for our student sites here, that's the address they'll get. If you set up a specific domain, the address to the root folder from the main FTP address will be the same as the domain name going to that same file. Okay? And that's how the connection is relevant when you have to go to a root folder. All right, because sometimes if you're sharing server space, you are going to have to go to a specific place here, and that would be set up by the person who's managing your server. If you have your own server space and you're only going to have one website, you don't need a root directory. Your site itself is the root directory. Okay, so it just goes to the main folder. Now, I am going to jump into this stuff at the end here, and I'm actually going to do this as a separate video as well, but I still want to include it at the end of this one, because if you're a person that gets really into this and starts to create, for example, and we don't need these files open, let's close these up, numerous sites. So if we go to manage sites here, I've done a couple different examples with my students, and I've also brought the Endless Surf site in here. In reality, I actually have a ton of sites. Okay, let's say I wanted to export those from my other computer where I'm still using Dreamweaver CS5 and bring them in here so I don't have to go and set up the connection to the folder on my computer and the server connection on every single site, and I have a lot of them. Number one thing you want to do is, if you keep all your sites in that one single place on a computer, and that's what I recommended when we first started these tutorials, right? Set it up so that you're going to have all your sites in one folder. That's what I do. I have a sites folder that's set up, and it's in my user folder, and I'm going to have the same username on this computer. So I'm going to have all my site files, and I'm going to move them over and put them in here so I don't have to re-download them all. And this is all going to be done from my other computer. So you're going to see this a little backwards. If I wanted to export sites, for example, from this version of Dreamweaver, I would highlight all of them, and then you can use this, which is the export button. In previous versions, they had an actual button that said export on it. And if I want to import from other versions of Dreamweaver the site definitions, I import and I go to the files where I've saved them and import them. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I got to switch computers. So I'm just going to stop this video here. We're going to switch computers, and then I'll come back to you guys on my other machine. Hey, this tutorial is a continuation of my previous tutorial that has to do with connecting to the server in Dreamweaver, and it's going to be plugged into the end of that video, and I'm also setting this up as a separate tutorial video in my playlist. So you're either watching it as part of that video or you're watching it as a separate video, but this starting here now, what we're going to cover is exporting and importing sites in Dreamweaver, the actual site settings. And in the process of that, we will discuss moving sites from one version of Dreamweaver to another. So this could happen on the same machine, really, or just moving from one computer to another. So I'll actually be doing both. I have CS5 on one of my machines, and this is where I predominantly worked on most of my sites. And I want to move those sites, like the site definitions in Dreamweaver, from Dreamweaver CS5 on this machine to Dreamweaver CS6, excuse me, on another machine. Okay, and you can adapt what I'm going to show you here to a variety of versions of Dreamweaver on Mac or PC. The settings should look pretty similar going all the way back to CS3, at least, I think even further. So let's get cracking. Okay, here we are in Dreamweaver CS5 on my older laptop, and I have one site up. It doesn't really matter which site I have up, but you can see just by looking at this, each of these sites has a specific definition connecting to the root folder locally on my machine, and a server definition connecting to the server online remotely. And I don't want to have to redo that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, it's almost 20 times. It's a lot. So here's how you solve this issue, okay? Go to Manage Sites. This can be done from here or the Site menu. Highlight every single one of them. Okay, now I don't really need the Endless Surf site because I have moved that one over as part of another, but whatever. I'm just going to highlight every one of them, okay? And I'm going to export. Exporting will create this file that saves the site settings to be moved to another version of Dreamweaver or another computer, okay? So I'm going to export. It says back up my settings, includes login, password, and local paths. Yeah, for sure. Passwords are not exported in a secure encrypted format. That's fine. I can deal with that. This is only going to go directly from one of my computers to another, so I'm okay with that. I'm going to click OK. It's going to ask me where I want to save it. I have an external hard drive set up to handle this right now, so I'm going to go over there to the external hard drive. Actually, hang on, that's my SD card. Where's my external hard drive? Computer. Okay, there it is right there. So this is external drive. I'm just going to make another folder on here temporarily so I know what these are. Let's call it DW Sites. Okay, and inside of this folder, I will save my site definitions. Alright, so you click Done, and you go back over here and go into Explore. Let's take a look and make sure they're there. Okay, wrong drive. Sorry about that. Computer, secure. Okay, so here I'm in the free agent drive where I saved them. DW Sites. You can see they're STE files. Okay, STE files are Dreamweaver site files. Most programs aren't going to recognize that, but if you go into another version of Dreamweaver on this computer or another, you'll be able to import these exported site settings. Okay, so from here, I'm almost ready to transfer back to my other computer to put these sites in there so I can start predominantly using that one, and then I don't really have to worry about the sites on this machine. The one thing I want you to consider, especially if you have a lot of sites on here that involve possibly some pretty heavy content that might consume quite a bit of space, is to go to the folder, okay, where the sites are, and move the files from here instead of setting up all the site definitions on your new computer and then remotely downloading all of the files from your server. That's just going to take way longer. Now keep in mind, you do want the most updated versions of files. So if you haven't updated these sites for a while, but you did from another computer, maybe you should download from the server. Do you understand what I mean by that? It's because you want the most updated files on your machine. But if you're the only ones that manage the sites anyway, these site files should be the most recent ones. So instead of downloading them from the server, this is a faster way to do it. All right, so I'm going to take all of these, this is quite a few files here, and I'm going to highlight them down, and then I'm going to copy them into my hard drive. So I'll do that while I'm on pause. You guys obviously don't want to watch all these files copying, okay? So it's pretty much everything in my sites folder, because I have a sites folder on my other computer, so I want everything from this sites folder to move to the other computer. And because I've defined my sites in here to connect to a folder called sites, all lowercase, inside of my username, which is Sloan Mike, so it's the same on both computers, I won't have to fix that on any of my site definitions either if I move these folders over with the definitions. So it's one more consideration to make. It's very, very simple to simply go to manage sites like we did, highlight all the sites, export them. But what about the files, right? Do you really want to go back and download all the files remotely once you set up all the sites in there? I think that's just going to take too long. So while I'm on pause, I'm going to transfer all these site files. Okay, so now I've copied all those site files, which did take a while. It's quite a few files. Some of these have a lot of stuff in there, but way faster than downloading from the remote server. So now I have my sites folder and I have my site definitions. So I'm going to eject this drive and move back over to my other computer. And what I did, just so you know, check free agent, I actually removed, well, I thought I did. Oh, that's the free agent drive. I actually removed them completely from this computer because if I'm switching, I really don't want to have multiple computers with different site definitions on them. I want to use one machine, so I don't really need this folder anymore. I just removed it completely, so there, it's gone now. If I use Dreamweaver, to edit certain sites in here, that's fine. Actually, if I ever need to use it to connect, I might still want to leave that folder in there just because. So if I refresh now, it's going to be an empty folder. Well, the root folder's gone, but yeah, maybe I'll go back through and clear all those out. It depends on the capacity to which you want to still keep using your computer. Yeah, I did remove all those folders. I'll deal with that later. I'm just going to move the hard drive over to my other machine, and then I'll start recording there. So I will see you in a second. Okay, so now I have moved to my other machine, and there would be a lot less copying if I was just simply transferring the site definitions from one version of Dreamweaver to another. In this case, the example I'm showing you, I'm transferring all of the site files and the site definitions from one computer to another and from CS5 to CS6. So I've plugged in my hard drive, which is right here. So I'm going to move the files from my sites folder, okay, into, and I don't know if you guys noticed, on my other computer I had my site folder defined with a capital F. It was the capital S. It was named with a capital S. So that means that if I want those site definitions to work, to access the same folder in the same user folder on a different computer, I have to have the folder name identical over here as well. So I'm just going to quickly fix that before I copy all of my site files into this folder. So that's one extra step I have, simply because I wanted to move it from one computer to another. So I'm going to go rename. I'm going to go here and put a capital S there, because as you know, setting up Dreamweaver Sites, the folder name has to be identical, and it is cap sensitive. So I've now matched that to the folder that I had over on my other machine. And on my hard drive and this machine, I named it with a small s, but I just changed that one because it was a capital S. So I don't want to just replace one with the other, because I do have some site files in here already. Okay, so I'm going to move, I think Endless Surf is one of the ones I already have in there, so I'm not going to move that one, but everything else I'm going to move into my sites folder. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Obviously you don't need to watch me do that, I'll be on pause. Okay, so now back on this computer, that would have been the first step, is moving all these site files in here. And as I've mentioned several times, you would have had the option, if you're already connected to the server, if you make the connection, to just download the files, but you'd still need all these folders created, because otherwise when you import the site definition from the other machine into this machine, into the new version of Dreamweaver, it's going to be looking for all these folders as part of the site definition, and they won't be there in this same named folder in this same place on this computer. So that's why I moved them all as well. It's just to make things a little simpler that way. So now, for the easy part, to bring in the sites in Dreamweaver, and as you know, I have a bunch of them, but you might only have one or two, and you're just trying to save yourself the trouble of having to redefine the site and the usernames and the passwords and all the FTP login stuff. You go into, now we're in CS6 again, so we go into Manage Sites, and we go Import Site, and we're going to go to the folder on the hard drive where I have all those sites ready to import, all the STE files that we saw a few minutes ago. Okay, we go to Computer, we go to my hard drive where I have those files. You don't really need to move the files over. I mean, you just need to get the site files up and then import them from Dreamweaver. Okay, so here they are. I'm going to highlight all of them in that folder, and I'm going to open all of them. So unless I'm mistaken, and this is different now, this should import all of the sites, and that's what it appears that it's doing. Bam, 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 bam. Oops, yeah, I didn't mean to import that one because I already had that one. Remember, I'd mentioned that before. So look, Dreamweaver's so smart, it even solves the problem for you. Endless Surf 2 I'll just get rid of once they're done importing sites. Yeah, sure, here, just make it... I don't want it to stop the process, so I'm just going to connect to whatever, anything on the computer, and then it'll keep going. Okay. Okay, and there we go, all done. So it took all the sites from my other machine, put them in there, and even though it was a different version of Dreamweaver, I go in here now, you can see all of my sites, and I am going to go to Manage Sites and get rid of Endless Surf 2 because I already had that one in there, and I'm glad that actually happened. That's a good example of how friendly Dreamweaver is. And to delete the site, right there, get rid of it, okay? So let's click on one of the new sites and make sure it worked. Okay, there's that site. Okay, which should connect to the folder called RuthSat now in my sites folder, and it did, and it worked. So, and that's one of the keys, because when you have a site, as you all know now, because you've already done this in a previous tutorial that I've had, the first thing you do is define the place in the computer where that site is located. Okay, I set up the same place on this machine to go to the folder called Sites, and then go to a folder by the same exact name, so I wouldn't have to deal with that. And then this is still in there without having to redo it. I hit test, everything works great. I just transferred almost 20 sites without having to redo the site definition and the remote server connection for any of them. So there you go. And that's it for this tutorial. And you're either watching this as part of the full server connection or just the exporting and importing sites connection. Either way you cut it, you can see that that process is quite simple. So if you ever end up setting up a lot of sites in Dreamweaver and then you have to switch computers or something, not a big deal, and I've just shown you how. So I will see you guys in the next lesson.